Okay, we're discussing the book of Romans. We're in chapters 3 and 4, especially 4, talking about how Romans is God's faith is the way that we come to God. Faith is the way that we are made righteous with God. And as Paul describes this, he's trying to describe this for people who are counting on their genetics, their history of their family line. We've been good, our family's been connected to God for generations, so therefore we should be in pretty good shape. We have the law of God. We have the book of Moses, the law of God. We have some prophetic writings. We've got all these things, and we know quite a bit about God. So we're kind of in good shape. Now he's writing to a group of people, and the Jews of that time pretty much thought they were going to heaven. A lot of Jews today don't even believe in God, so this is a little different time, quite different. Most of the Jewish people back then thought that they were the chosen people and that they had a kind of like a hotline to God. You kind of really have to screw up to not go to heaven, to not be counted as righteous. It's kind of how the Pharisees taught people. It was based on your genetics, your family history, your affirmation of Abraham as your forefather, and then of course the rite of circumcision. So the males in the family had to be circumcised, and that pretty much was all you really had to do. That was their big deal, was the circumcision, and that meant they were in good with God. So Paul begins to try to explain how this really works. That circumcision was a sign of what Abraham had, the faith that Abraham had, and he talks about Abraham having faith, a faith which is in God telling them, first of all, get up and leave your country. I'm not going to leave you here. If you want to follow me, I'm calling you. If you want to respond, you need to leave this land that you're in. Now, we don't even know why he said that, doesn't tell us, but we just know that's what God said. So that's the first act of obedience that Abraham made to God. He responded to God's commandment. Get up and leave. I'm not sure he even did it immediately. I think it was about 5 years before he did that. But he did do it. Okay? So the first act of obedience, there we go. Then, as he's traveling, God reveals to him. So that's an act of faith. I trust you. I'm doing what you say. I will respond to you by obeying. By believing you and moving, because I believe you said it, I will do it. Then he says, I'll make you a father of many nations. And Abraham's like, okay, I'll believe that too. I trust you with that. Sounds good. Probably went home, told Sarah, hey, guess what? This is what God's going to do. They were in their, I think, 60s or 70s at that point. And Sarah, it says that Sarah was definitely beyond childbearing, and Abraham thought he was potentially, but Abraham had never had children, and she was beyond the age of childbearing, even in a normal situation. So a woman who'd never had children and was past childbearing age, and God is saying, I'm going to give you a son. Abraham said, okay, and not only a son, you will be a father of many nations. So Abraham believed that, and he went out. Now that's a difficult. How do we know he believed it? How do we know he believed it? Well, see, this is where I think it relates quite a bit to the Christian life, in the fact that we say, God is calling you. Maybe you're 12, maybe you're 18, maybe you're 25, whatever. God is calling you. He wants you to be a Christian. You're in a meeting, you are You feel like that's, I think I hear God calling me. I think I'll do that. I'll follow him. I will be a Christian. So you give your life, maybe even get baptized. And then you have the question of what's next. And for Abraham, that question of what's next was, I will give you a child, at least one. And then that child will have children. And you're going to have many nations come from your seed. We don't have that promise. We're not called to be the ancestor of the Messiah as Abraham was. But the way we know that Abraham struggled with that, and the way we know his faith was real, in one sense, is because he didn't just go, well, okay, whatever. He was expecting it. The reason we know he was expecting it is because Sarah and him started wondering, how in the world was this going to happen? It's been like 12 years, God, when's it going to happen? But they hadn't given up. They just thought, maybe we didn't understand. Maybe we need to do something a little different. Maybe we need to help. So their faith was real. See, a dead faith that doesn't care will just say, yeah, I prayed when I was 12, prayed when I was 16, 20. Yep, I'm a Christian. Let's go fishing. A faith that is real and alive is saying, how does this work? I met God. I met the creator of the universe. How's that supposed to work out? What do I do next? Where is this leading me? Where do we go? How does this work? And if you really want that, now I'm not saying you have to make foolish decisions like Abraham did and go get, go really sin against your family, against God, against your wife. But we're going to probably make some mistakes because we're going to try to figure out what a life looks like that's a life of faith. How does that differ from a life that's just the average guy, the average girl out there just doing their thing? If I'm called by God, surely something must be different. And that's the process of what we're trying to do. And I think that as we grow in that, we have a sanctification. It's called sanctification. Our sanctification is our child, in a sense. It is the life that we have been promised that we will be. Jesus said, Paul said, those who have been called have been predestined. God predetermined that if you become his child, you are going to grow in fruit. That's the plan. That's the promise for a Christian, is that you'll become a holy person, not just in right standing with God, someone who actually is holy and lives in holiness and grows in that. And that is the call. That's the thing that we can't figure out how to do. But Paul says it's from faith to faith. From faith to faith. We stay in faith. We look to faith for forgiveness of our sins that we committed in past. We look to God for the forgiveness of our sins that we committed yesterday or today, if we know of any. And we look to God to live a life that is full of his grace and life and purpose. And we ask him, how does that look? What does that look like? What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to live this out? And that is the life of faith. And we will grow in that. And as we do, we will we'll see the completion of our faith at some point when Jesus returns. But we'll also see Isaac. We'll see, I think I actually have borne some fruit. I actually have become a much godlier person than I would have been on my own. God really has been doing something in me. And it's a pretty amazing thing. So, there you go. Yeah, so the mystery of being a godly person, mystery of being a person that really lives what we would call a sanctified life, is that it is by faith. We do have to trust God, because here's the thing. Abraham believed God, but he couldn't figure out how it was going to happen. He was looking at this going, But God, it's been 12 years. And God reaffirmed that. God didn't just talk to him every day and tell him, hey, I'm going to do this. Part of faith is going with what you've been told and continuing and just not giving up. But so Abraham was told, I'm going to make you father of many nations. And Sarah just kept getting older. He kept getting older, and nothing had changed. So, we can say, oh, yeah, well, that's what faith is. You just believe and you just trust. And what I found is that if you're not dealing in reality, if you're not looking at what's going on in your life, you can have a fake faith. You can call it faith, but if it's not straining you inside, if it's not working your muscle, your spiritual effort at all to believe this, I'm not sure that it's the kind of faith that Abraham was dealing with there. I think the first faith sometimes is very simple. God exists. He kind of reveals that to us. It's very much almost something you can't ignore. I know when I was born again, it seemed like it was just something that couldn't even. I was like, it just happened. I wasn't looking for God. I wasn't seeking God. I wasn't trying to figure God out. It just happened. And then I was told all these amazing things about life that were going to come, Now, I'm not saying that because, by the way, that that if you were not born again that way, if your first experience with God was not miraculous in some way or very easy, that means it wasn't in faith. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's how it worked for me. And some people I know have the same thing. And then you're excited, and then it just kind of, you're like, what happened? What's going on? It almost might be easier if you didn't have that zeal at the beginning. You just kind of started off a little less excited. I don't know. I didn't have that experience, but you do kind of wonder. I do. I wonder what is it that that I'm supposed to be doing now? I have the zeal. I'm all excited, but I got nowhere to go. I got nothing to do. I don't know what to do with it. Just what's next? I think Abraham felt like that. So I think we can learn a lot from this Abraham story. Because Abraham felt like that too. Abraham was very excited, I imagine. Like I said, went back, probably told Sarah, hey, this is what's happening. Let's go. We're going to have a baby. And, probably was pretty thrilled. And over time, it just probably was harder and harder to enjoy intimacy, to think there was anything, to not feel bitter, to not wonder if God, are you sure you heard this properly? You sure that was God? Maybe this was just some false experience. I mean, really, what do you have to base it on? Some voice you heard, in your head or whatever? Well, I think we can all relate to that to some degree. I really do. You can relate to that even in a marriage, that you're just excited. You're falling in love is not usually something that you try to have happen. It just kind of usually just happens. The next thing you know, you're excited, and if you're blessed and it works out, you got someone else that falls in love with you. So you're not heartbroken. But but it's not really an effort. There's no effort. But there's a little effort later on, isn't there, in a marriage? So I'm trying to relate this to, again, the walk of a Christian, and the life of becoming a more holy person. And holy not just in don't do this, don't do that, but living for God, doing what you're what a human being is created to do, and learning what that means and what that looks like. And some of that just involves taking care of your own business, and some of that involves caring about others in ways that maybe are beyond your natural ability. I don't know. But I do think that if we have real faith, And if it's going to grow, and if it's going to continue, and if our sanctification is going to be something that we continue in, then we are going to have some faith crises along the way, as Abraham and Sarah did, where they just were like, I think maybe it's, let me explain how that worked. Maybe it's my handmaid, because back then people had servants. Everybody who was wealthy had a servant. They were essentially a slave, but doesn't mean they mistreated them, but they were slaves. As far as I know, unless I misunderstand it. The way it worked was, legally, I believe, in the land that they lived in at that time, if Sarah's daughter, or Sarah's servant, Hagar, had a son with Sarah's husband, that legally Sarah could claim that child as her own. So she tried to go beyond the grace of God, the faith of God, the waiting, and help God to make this happen. And although Ishmael was blessed by God, he was not the promised child that was going to bring the Messiah. He had his own line of nations that came from him, but that's not the child that God was talking about when he made that promise to Abraham. Doesn't mean he was cursed, doesn't mean he wasn't blessed by God, he just wasn't the promised child. So how do I put this? What we have is a situation where we have God calling us, and he says, be holy, for I'm holy. And I go, I don't even know what that looks like. I don't know what it means. I'm excited right now. I've sensed your presence. I believe in you now. I didn't used to, but now I do. But I don't really know what else to do. I don't know where to go with this. I don't know where to take it. Should I go study the law of Moses, or should I start keeping the Jewish sacrifices? If I'm not circumcised, should I get circumcised? Should I stop eating certain kinds of food? Should I start celebrating certain days? I mean, what am I supposed to do? And what God is really trying to work in us is he's trying to create holy people that don't carry bitterness in their heart, that don't carry hatred in their heart, that don't despise the poor, that don't despise people who are wealthier than they are, people who are loving God and loving other people. And if we're honest, if we look at our life and we recognize really who we are, there's a part of us that quite often doesn't measure up to that. And that's why Paul could say in Romans chapter 5 that God died for us while we were yet sinners. Because I'm not a holy man. I am not everything I need to be. But just like Abraham was called a father of many nations and told to leave his land and follow God, God has made a promise to me that I will be a holy man in practicality, along with legally being called by God a man of righteousness, and having it accounted to my account that I am righteous. I actually become righteous as I grow. And as Paul said, as he was an older man, he said, I haven't achieved this. I'm not there yet, but I see that I'm more holy than I was. I'm moving in that direction. I am being transformed. And one day this body will die and I'll get a new one, and then that transformation will be complete. But even in that, so we're moving from, that's an act of faith. So that's an act of faith to continue in the process of trusting God when I've been a Christian for 20 years and I still struggle with whatever problem. I still feel like I'm don't have enough energy to serve the poor. I still don't have a zeal for other people. I don't truly love others as I love myself. Jesus did, because he was the Messiah, so he never failed to fulfill every part of that. He also knew his responsibility, and he didn't take on more than he was supposed to. I don't know how to do that. I often take on more than I should because someone has told me that's a good idea, and then I get burnt out and I can get bitter, or I just decide, you know what, I'm looking out for number one. I'll just take care of me. Somewhere in the middle of that is Jesus teaching me how to live a godly life, and that's what we're called to, and that's where Paul says we go from faith to faith. We had the initial faith. I now believe. I now know there's a God. I see him. I don't know exactly where I'm supposed to go with all this, but I trust him. And now, and then 20, 10, 15, 30, 40 years later, now I have the same situation. God, it's been 15 years. I thought I was going to be really better at this by now. No, you're not. No, Isaac has not been born yet. Isaac has not been born yet. But he's coming. And that's the faith. Faith to faith. We grow, we go from faith to faith, Paul said. I think that's possibly in Romans as well, but I'm not sure. But there's a passage in the Bible that says we go from faith to faith. I always used to wonder what that meant. I think that's what it means. I think it means that we have a life that starts with faith, and we're counted as righteous. God gives us that reckoning, that accounting mark on the ledger, righteous. And then I look at my life and I go, but I don't see myself behaving very righteous. I don't understand what's going on. It's not working like I thought it would. Are you sure I'm righteous? God says you are righteous. God calls those things that be not as though they were. God called Abraham a father of many nations before Abraham was a father of many nations. But because God said he was a father of many nations, that was a promise Abraham could count on. So if you have given your heart to the Lord Jesus, if you have made him your king, if you've made him your Lord, if you said, I want to walk with you, I choose you because you chose me, I respond, I love you because you love me. If you don't like the way I'm phrasing that, just deal with it. This is trying to say God first came, called us. When we hear that call and we respond, that's where we're at in faith. That's our first step of faith. And we are counted as righteous because of that act of faith. And then we have a lifetime of walking in it. So when you fail, not that you want to fail, but when you do fail, you go, okay, this is where I can extend, this is where I can learn to grow in faith. We tend to get discouraged. We tend to say, I don't think that was really God. We want to walk away from that. We want to say, I just would rather give up on this. It's just, it doesn't seem true. It's been 24 years, Abraham. It's been 24 years. Are you sure we're going to have a son? Sarah said. Sarah could have said that. In fact, she basically did. Abraham, really? You're still believing that? Still? Maybe we should just give up. It's too hard to hope anymore. It's too hard to believe anymore. It's too hard to trust. It's too hard to try and love God. I just want to be disappointed in God. I just want to be, at least forget God, if not be angry with him. But at the very least, just forget him. I'm done trying to trust him. I don't want to anymore. I don't like the way he's doing it. If it is him, I'm mad because he should have taken care of this decades ago. Why am I still having to go through all this pain? If God loves me, why is he allowing this to last so long? And so we ask these questions and we start wondering and we start doubting and we start telling God that he doesn't know what he's doing. That's where we go from faith to faith. We have to hang in there. We have to say, my God is my salvation. I don't know how it looks. I'm not sure when it's going to end. I'm not sure when I get my new body. I'm not sure when I stop struggling with this same problem that I've had forever. But by God's grace, I'm going to see some fruit somewhere. I know I will because I have to. Because God isn't a liar. God is not a liar. So if God is true, then let my own thoughts be a lie. Let my own doubts be a lie. Let my own reasonings be a lie. And let me trust you, Father. Help me. And I've been there many, many times in my life. And I've wanted to give up. I've wondered. But I've been... I really didn't know where else to go. So I've just hung in there. Because God is true. And I just want to encourage you to do the same. I'm not coming at you with any kind of harshness or criticism or judgment. I'm just asking you to hang in there with God. Just go back to him. Sarah had that happen to her. Abraham wondered if maybe there was a different way. Maybe we should just try to have a child through Hagar. And we're going to do that. We're going to wonder. We're going to say, well, maybe I really should do this. Maybe this is a better way to think about God. Maybe the way I was taught wasn't right. Maybe there really isn't any hope in what I believed. Maybe I should just give that up because it hurts too bad to keep trying to trust. And I'm just asking you not to do that. I'm asking you to keep trying. Because that is faith. Faith is trusting God when you don't know what he's doing. It's hanging in there. And knowing that he made a promise and that he's not a liar. He promised you'll be righteous. He promised you will walk in a white robe with him. And I don't even know what that means. But whatever it is, it's going to be awesome. Can you imagine being in the presence of the creator of all of this? The mind of God that created everything we see. How much wisdom is there? How much wisdom did it take to create one leaf on a tree? And we have an entire universe that we can explore with him for eternity. Just trust him. Don't give up. Trust him. The blood of Jesus washes away all your sin. If you've sinned, confess it, wash it away. Let it go. If you doubt, confess. Just tell God, I'm doubting. I need your help. Give me more grace. Give me help to trust because I'm doubting. And then hang in there. Abraham had to hang in there at least 25 years. I don't know what happened after that. Sarah died, and we don't know a whole lot of what happened with his life after that. Well, we do. I mean, actually, he had to go offer Isaac on the mountain. God stopped him because it wasn't. The point was just to even further develop his faith. So we're not done till we're done. I know I'm not done. I'm not sure what's going to be next, but I imagine there's going to be more things to stretch my faith. And if your faith is so settled and so solid that it isn't even a challenge to you, maybe you ought to just reconsider. Maybe I need to know. Maybe I need to explore God a little more deeply. What does he want? What is he doing? If all I'm trying to do is maximize my 401k, I'm not saying that's bad. Get as much as you can, but I don't think that's faith. Faith is something different. And I hope you're stretching yourself with God's call, whatever that is in your life, whatever it is that you need to let go of, and whatever it is you need to step into. And it's in the scriptures. There's certain things we know, certain things that just aren't acceptable, and certain things that are we're supposed to be. We're supposed to look like a certain way. We're supposed to walk as Jesus walked. And I don't think I'll ever be raising the dead, but you know what? If he ever calls me to do that, I guess I'll figure that out at the time. But I can learn how to forgive like Jesus forgave. That's where I ought to probably start. So anyway, God bless you.